Welcome back to Ask Dr. Clarke. Marital crisis is my thing. That's what I do. My strategies empower you and give you the best chance to save your marriage. For my books, the podcast, these Ask Dr. Clarke videos, my phone advice service, go to my website, davideclarkephd.com. That's Clarke with an E, davideclarkephd.com. If you've got an issue you want to discuss with me, it's in the way of really life coaching, it's not therapy, you can talk to me for 45 minutes. Of course, I'll charge you with a credit card over the phone, but we could have I'm doing 70% of my practice now are these phone advice sessions. 1, maybe 2, I'm going to give you a clear plan of action moving forward. So keep that in mind. Now, many Christian counselors, pastors, church leaders, pastoral counselors, even professional counselors give bad advice to abused wives and, frankly, abused husbands too. Their advice causes more damage and abuse. They don't mean that, of course, but that's what happens. Here are the top 5 bad pieces of advice Christian counselors give to abused wives or, frankly, abused husbands. First, they tell you that you need marriage counseling. No, you don't. That's the last thing you need. If you're at the beginning of a process of trying to heal and change the abuser and your marriage, that is the last thing you need. What you need is a physical separation if you truly have an abusive spouse, and each of you getting individual counseling. Marriage counseling, waste of time. The abuser has made no changes. He'll lie his head off. He'll act like he's changing. He'll check the box. I went to counseling. Waste of time. You, the abused spouse, need to heal from the wounds your abuser has inflicted on you and get emotionally healthy. Stop the codependency. Stop the enabling. That's very important. That's your work. Your abuser needs to spend 7 to 8 months, listen to me, 7 to 8 months, not 7 to 8 weeks, figuring out why he's abusive and getting into full emotional and spiritual recovery. Is he going to do that? Probably not. But that's exactly what he needs. And get the heck away from him as he's working on those issues. Second piece of bad advice is these well-meaning counselors will tell you that your abuser has repented and is different. They'll tell you this in the first session, halfway through the first session, at the end of the first session, in the beginning of the process. What's this based on? His words, his performance of repentance. And these guys are good. If you're living with one, they're masters. They will lie their heads off. They believe their own lies. It's charming. It's persuasive. They'll even cry. They should be handed an Oscar after their performance. It's bogus. It doesn't mean anything. He's done nothing. He's done no work in counseling. He's lying his head off to look good. Frankly, they will charm your counselor if it's not someone like me who figures it out pretty quickly and has been 35 years in the business, in the ministry. He'll charm them. He'll fool them. And so, because he's miraculously repented, you should be nice to him. You should live with him. Now let's look at your problems in the marriage. Wrong, wrong, wrong. True repentance takes months and a lot of work because involved in repentance, embedded in the concept biblically, is true change, becoming the new man. He's not even close to that. The third bad piece of advice is they'll tell you that your number one priority should be restoration of the marriage. For these counselors, the marriage is all they care about. Your number one priority is not the marriage, it is you and your health and your safety and your emotional recovery and that of your children. I want you to physically separate, take the kids with you, and work on your emotional health and your new life. That's what you need to do when you have an abusive spouse. I've seen nothing else work in 35 years. When people come to me, they've tried everything else. Marriage seminars, talking to the pastor, even professional counseling, marriage counseling, waste of time. They tried everything. Nothing has worked. His job, the abuser's job, is to get emotionally healthy and walk closely with God. Is he going to do it? Don't know. We'll find out. It's also his job, not your job, to restore the marriage. That's on him. Your position should be, I'm done with you. You don't take any legal steps unless God guides you, but I'm done, don't want you. Then we see what he does. And that's only said when you're out and away from him. The fourth piece of bad advice, and this is one of the nastier ones, and these people believe this because they're clueless. They tell you that the abuse is partly your fault. If you'd been a better wife, more loving, met more of his needs, he wouldn't have abused you. Seriously? Absolutely false and frankly emotionally abusive to even tell you this. You hear this from a counselor, I don't care what his or her name is or what their qualifications are, get up, don't say a word, and walk out of the office. They are wrong and they're hurting you. The abuse is in fact 100% the abuser's fault. 100%. Have you made mistakes in the marriage? Of course, no one's perfect, but you're not abusive. You are the victim of the abuse. Your fault is that you tolerated it for too long. Okay, we'll grant the counselor that. That's it. The fifth piece of bad advice is they tell you that you should feel sorry for the abuser. They buy his martyr, I'm in terrible pain act and want you to feel sorry for him. And it is an act, and it's a brilliant act. See, he's changing the focus from the terrible damage he's done, the sins he has inflicted upon you, how he's ruining your life, to, oh, this is so hard for me. He's lonely. He's hurting. Yes, so what? I recommend you hand the abuser an Oscar for that performance and don't feel sorry for him. His pain, which is faked anyway, isn't the issue. Your pain is. Look, I don't care if an abuser is actually sincere with his being sorry. Okay, fine. You've still got seven months of work to do on yourself. But the fact is, I rarely see this. It's an act. And when you call them on the act, they'll turn on you like a snake because it's not true. The abuser deserves to be lonely, hurting, and cut off, a pariah. Yeah, by all means. That may motivate him to change. He shouldn't be coddled. Now, to make sure you're following the right biblical plan of action, if you're married to an abuser, I want you to do two things. Now, up to you, of course. But I'd get the book, my book, Enough is Enough, How to Leave an Abusive Relationship. I wrote it for you, step by step, how to define abuse, how to know you're being abused, and what to do about it, which in my mind is leaving. That may take some time, not going to be tomorrow, but it can make the difference. And also, you can do a 45-minute phone advice session with me. I'm dealing with these sessions. 70% of my practice now are phone advice sessions from across the country: California, Illinois, Tennessee, you name that, New Hampshire. Also, even internationally, because abuse doesn't know any geographical boundaries. You can have that 45 minutes with me, and I'll give you I'll get the background. We'll make sure you're being abused, and then I'll instruct you as to what to do. So, now one final thing, and again, if you know who I am and you've been listening to these videos and my podcasts and I read some of my books maybe, you know that I'm not the usual Christian counselor. You're not going to hear this coming out of a Christian counselor's mouth. You're just not going to. All right? So I think I'm unique in that way. You can, if you agree with this approach, if it's helping, you think it will help others, help us. Help people with the truth by subscribing to my YouTube channel and tapping the like button. Those leaving a 5-star rating and tapping the like button, subscribing, a comment, all these things help us grow our audience so we can make a difference and help more abused wives and, frankly, abused husbands as well.